Hello, this is Brian. Today is Tuesday, April 25th, 2023, and I'm here along the Stephenson Peak service road just off Sunrise Highway here in the Cleveland National Forest, Laguna Recreation Area, and it's time for a Spotlight on Shrubs video. So today, I am going to be spotlighting this beautiful shrub right here. This is Cupleaf Ceanothus, Ceanothus perplexans, sometimes still known by its older name, Ceanothus gregii variety perplexans. So what we have here is a medium to sometimes quite large shrub. Sometimes gets taller than 5 feet. Depends on where it's growing and the exposure, soil depth. But what we have here is again, medium to large evergreen shrub in the Buckthorn family, the Rhamnaceae. And that's a quite abundant shrub in the peninsular ranges of Southern California. You'll find it a lot in the San Jacinto Mountains, especially on the Desert Divide and on the east slope of the San Jacintos, and also along the crest and east side of the Laguna Mountains, and sometimes in the Cuyamaca Mountains. So what we have here is, why are we calling it Cupleaf Ceanothus? A lot of our shrubs out here have interesting, pretty descriptive common names. Well, the common name refers to the relatively cup-like profile of the leaves. As you see here, the leaves are cup upward at the midrib. This is the underside. The underside is a little bit lighter color. The upper side is kind of a rich medium green, but you can see it kind of cups upward. So that's why we have the name Cupleaf Ceanothus. Now, some of the leaves are tooth-edged, and some of them are smooth-edged. This one tends to be a little bit more of a smooth-edged leaf. And some of them are slightly toothed, and some of them are much more noticeably toothed. So there's quite a bit of leaf variability in Ceanothus species, and this species is definitely no exception. If you look at this twig here, you'll see some that have some teeth on them and some that are smooth-edged. And the reason why I'm waiting until now to spotlight this shrub is because of its flower displays. Not so much on this one. This one here is starting to bud out. You can see all these flower buds on this shrub. So this will be blooming pretty soon. There are a few in the area that are blooming, and that's why I'm doing the spotlight today. Again, today's April 25th. So mid-spring, higher up in the mountains, we're at an elevation of 6,050 feet above sea level. This is a great time to start seeing stuff blooming. The higher you go, the later it is, obviously. But again, yes, we're looking at this. And this belongs to a group of Ceanothus, of pretty closely related species that have these warty stipules on their twigs. So that's another thing. They have these kind of warty stipules. The leaves are oppositely arranged on the stem. As you can see here, these are opposite each other on the stem. So we know the leaves are oppositely arranged, which is not always the case in Ceanothus. There are a lot of alternate leaved ones, and there are a lot of oppositely leaved ones. So this one's pretty closely related to Ceanothus crassifolius, I believe. I think it's pretty closely related because it has very similar gray twigs that are kind of warty with the little warty old stipules. And I believe it's also closely related to Ceanothus verrucosus, the coast Ceanothus, or the wartstem Ceanothus. You can check my spotlight video on that one as well. I got that one back in February when it was in bloom in the coastal areas of San Diego County. So they are pretty closely related. What you see here, late April, they are getting buds on them, and they are starting to flower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go migrate over to some more that are a little bit further along and they're blooming, so you can get an idea of what they look like in bloom. So we're up here, and we don't have full bloom yet, but we do have some opening flower clusters So I will feel good in doing my spotlight today. Slightly lower elevations are probably more into their bloom than they would be up here at 6,000 feet. But let's go look at a couple other features first. So these shrubs have generally relatively smooth gray bark, sometimes a little fluted or creased. Sometimes I notice a lot of shrubs in the genus Ceanothus, especially the more closely related ones, tend to have grayish and sometimes fluted bark on older specimens that sometimes darkens a little bit with age and sometimes gets a little rougher, like especially on Ceanothus crassifolius, Ceanothus verrucosus, I think Ceanothus megacarpus, subspecies megacarpus. They also, I think these are all pretty closely related because there are Ceanothus divided into Cerastes and subgenus Ceanothus. So let's go look at some of the other structures of this plant. Again, warty stipules on the twigs. So this is a characteristic of the subgenus Cerastes. And a lot of these Ceanothus species are not burl formers. A lot of them rely on I should go backtrack a little bit. When I'm talking about burl formers, forming root burls from which also known as a lignotuber, from which the plant can sprout after fire. So from a lignotuber or a root burl, the plant will often resprout after a fire or being cut down. I believe a lot of the Cerastes do not have root crowns or root burls or lignotubers. So they're going to have to come up after being scarified by the heat of fire or the smoke charrate of fire, either one or the other. And then that's what causes the seeds to want to germinate, hopefully after that fire blows through in the summer or fall, and then enough wetting rains liven it up for spring. So we do have some blooms, so I'm going to kind of walk around a little bit. This little pocket over here seems to have a little bit more bloom action on it. So I do want to show you what the flowers look like. Because flowers, when these shrubs are in mass, half the slope will be covered white because this plant is very abundant where you'll find it, especially here on the crest and east slope of the Laguna Mountains. And I've seen these a lot. I've seen a lot of these along the Desert Divide on the Pacific Crest Trail in the southern San Jacinto Mountains as well. That's just a little up in Riverside County. But here we go. This one is starting to really bloom. Beautiful white 5-petal flowers with long stamens. The stamens poke out, I think, a little bit longer than the petals are. The stamens are a little longer than the petals. And you really have to look up very closely to see these in real good detail. I don't think the camera is going to do that much justice to how beautiful the flowers are. And then, as with other species of Ceanothus, when the flowers are pollinated, they will form these warty, rounded seed capsules that'll burst open, shooting the seeds all over, that'll eventually drop to the ground, creating a seed bank from which the plants will germinate after fire or very large disturbance, especially fire. Fire is probably your best bet. So I imagine germinating these on your own would require the risk of fire. You probably will have to light some duff on fire and either put the seeds in or have the seeds in while you burn it. I've never tried germinating any species of Ceanothus yet, so I really can't say from experience, but fire is your best bet for getting these to germinate. But look at how beautiful the little pom-poms of flowers are. They're almost like small cymes, or almost like, more like small cymes. Not quite panicles, but they're almost like umbels, but they're more like a cyme, a C-Y-M-E. It's kind of these clusters of flowers. And you can see these native ants here are going for the nectar in these beautiful flowers. So let me get a few close-up shots. Hopefully with this new camera I have, the picture quality will be pretty good. I don't know how the video quality is. This is my first day using it, so let me get a few shots of this plant and then we can conclude it by showing some love and appreciation for this plant and talk a little bit about its habitat, its elevational range, and so forth. Okay, so this shrub is generally a fairly low to moderately high elevation. I've seen this up to roughly about 7,000 feet, I believe. And as low as it goes, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it does go below 5,000 and 4,000 feet. But typically mid-elevation mountains like this. They really love these peninsular ranges. And the peninsular ranges are the ones that extend from Mount San Jacinto and also Sierra Peak in the Santa Ana Mountains to the west. And then they run their way south-southeast through the spine of Mexico. So, Southern California and Baja is your most likely spot to find this plant, but here on the screen I should have at some point the little bit more comprehensive range of this beautiful shrub that I've mentioned a lot here when I've hiked at Mount Laguna, and now I'm finally spotlighting it. So there it is, Ceanothus perplexans, the Cupleaf Ceanothus. Beautiful shrub here in the Laguna Mountains and the peninsular ranges of Southern California, especially in chaparral. Ceanothus, most Ceanothus is at home primarily in the chaparral, and Ceanothus perplexans is no exception to that. Chaparral, especially on the crest and east sides of the mountain ranges. Maybe sometimes on the lower mountains to the west, some of the drier areas. It tends to favor some of the drier slopes here in the mid-elevation mountains. Again, we're about 6,050 feet above sea level. That's where you'd expect to see it. Common associates of Cupleaf Ceanothus would be pale silk tassel right here, Garrya flavescens, and the Rhamnaceae. This appears to be a subspecies of Eastwood manzanita. Arctostaphylos glandulosa subspecies, I don't know. And other species of manzanita, like in general, manzanitas, pinkback manzanita, which is common in the peninsular ranges. Chamise, up to about 6,000 plus feet. Red shanks, you'll find with red shanks in some of the other mountain ranges like the San Jacintos, and sometimes down here in San Diego County. Red shanks isn't found up here, but there you have it. Ceanothus perplexans, Cupleaf Ceanothus. Thanks for watching my video. Hope you found it helpful in identifying another awesome species. Thanks for watching.